Somi noise.
¿Estamos?
Estamos.
Estamos. Ok. Hoş geldiniz. Adine Ian nasılsın? Günaydın, iyi akşamlar. İyi geceler, güle güle, görüşürüz. Evet, hayır, teşekkürler. How's my Turkish boys? This is episode 16.
That's pretty good, man.
Sweet 16. Lingaholics, we're blasted off into the lingosphere here. Whee! Yeah. What's up, boys? Just getting my coffee in me. Feeling good, but yeah, man. The little Esther challenge is up and running. Thought I'd throw some at you.
Hey, you want to translate for us?
Yeah, I have no idea. I don't speak
I was literally just throwing all the phrases that I know. So, for example, hoş geldiniz or hoş geldin. It's kind of like when you do enough languages, you start to notice there's the formal and the informal, and just like me and Cody with Korean, there's like 3 levels of formality. So if something ends with is in Turkish, that's like talking usted in Spanish, real formal. Hoş geldiniz, if I was talking, well, plural, you guys are plural right now, so I think that's the correct form to use. But then hoş geldin, if I just want to be less formal. And then like nasılsınız, ¿cómo estás? How are you? Nasılsın, or no, sorry, nasılsınız, like ¿cómo está usted? Nasılsın, ¿cómo estás? So little breakdown there, threw in some greetings at you. Günaydın, which kind of sounds like good night, but it's actually good morning. İyi akşamlar, bonsoir, good evening, iyi geceler.
You said good morning and good evening.
Well, people are gonna listen to this whenever they listen to it. So
fair enough.
Türkçe bilmiyorum ve İngilizce biliyorum. So I don't know Turkish, but I do English. Little phrases. So yeah, this past week I tried something new, taking on Turkish. I went more for like an extensive practice this week instead of intensive. So yeah, I can get into what that means exactly, but
boys, yeah, what does that mean?
Nasılsın. What does that mean?
That's interesting because intensive and extensive for me, those are science terms.
There's something I want to bring up too, but let's just do our
introduction. Yeah, let's turn. Yeah, before we get all Turkish.
Right.
What's up, boys? Turkish. Yeah.
Marcus, you go first.
Yeah, Marcus.
Well, so first of all, it's a beautiful day here in Barcelona. I just went running today up in the montañitas aquí alrededor de la ciudad. So the mountains of Barcelona, if you're not familiar with the geography of this beautiful Mediterranean city, it's surrounded by mountains, right? So it's on the Mediterranean, but it's surrounded by mountains. They're not big, but they're mountains. For sure, they're mountains. They're not just like small little hills. They're mountains. So there's a bunch of trails up on the mountains where you can go pasear, caminar, o sea, whatever you want. Exactly. So I was up there, I was running, I ran 8 kilometers, but it's very like up and down. The terrain is very varied.
Subidas y
bajadas. Up and down, exactamente. So I was up there, and the best part about this place is that you have the best views of the entire city from up there. Yeah, so you see everything. You legitimately see all of the city, all of the industrial parts, and then you can actually look over the mountains and look on the other side, like the valleys and like how the mountains grow, because so this is kind of the start of the Pyrenees.
Right. Yeah.
And then as you go farther, the Pyrenees, the mountains just start growing and growing and growing, and all of a sudden you're in the center of the Pyrenees. Say
that must
Andorra.
Be a sweet view at night, no? Oh, Andorra.
Beautiful. Yeah. So it goes up all the way to Andorra, right? And Andorra is this mountain paradise in the Pyrenees, in between Spain and France.
That reminds me to when I lived in Honduras, Tegucigalpa, and Capital. Yeah, man. It's when you're up in the valleys and you're just overlooking the entire city, like just it's magnificent, man. And then also when you're I don't know. I guess, are there villages on those mountains? Like, do people live at all in those mountains? I think
Yeah,
is
a
it
bunch of rich people here.
Oh, okay, yeah. Okay. Well, in Honduras is the opposite. All the poor people live on the
Yeah.
outsides. But when you're in the middle of Honduras, it looks like there's like you're surrounded by you're in a Christmas tree. It seems like because all the little barrios would be
Yeah,
lit
no, I
up
know
and
how
stuff
that
like that.
works. I know how
Yeah,
that works.
yeah,
Same
but
in like Costa
there's
Rica.
beautiful
Yeah.
views. Exacto. I think Latin America tiene esto, but dude, heck
Yeah,
yeah,
it's
man.
nice. Yeah, you see some pretty sick houses up there, like mansion style houses
Casones.
with amazing views. Uh, and I just wanted to touch on the weather. The weather is phenomenal. It's probably like
Buen clima.
25 degrees out today and
Buen
sunny.
clima.
I was talking to the locals here. My buddy, he said that it's warmer than usual for mid-November. Usually,
Okay.
like otoño, like the fall here gets a little chillier,
Yeah.
and like the winter, it does get chillier. It doesn't snow. It never snows, but it does get chillier.
It's looking better.
It drops to like 10 or even lower sometimes, but now it's like 25 and nice.
So you think is that going to stay that way for till into December? I don't know.
I hope so, man. I hope so.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
hope so. It's very arid
Deal.
here. It's very arid. It's kind of like Calgary a little bit in terms of its aridness. Like it doesn't rain here
Oh, okay.
a lot.
Yeah.
It doesn't rain here a lot. Maybe the locals are going to tell me that now that I don't know what I'm talking about. But it's probably only rained like 3 or 4 days since I came here.
Oh damn! You've been there 2 months, right?
More, 3 almost.
More. Casi tres.
2.5. So yeah, I'm enjoying my day. So I went out and I did my ejercicio, my workouts, my running and whatever, just enjoying the day. And now I'm here. I'm doing some work and I got the pod. So I'm stoked. I'm having a great day, boys. A great day. Yeah. So with that being said, I'm gonna throw it back to Alberta. Pinche cola.
Yeah. I don't have too much to touch on this week. I've just been working hard and trying to stay at home because we've got a second wave of COVID here.
Yeah, we got some restricciones.
Yeah, so I don't have too much to touch on. My life's kind of boring right now.
Well,
but you got to at least tell us something about languages, man.
Yeah,
what are you doing for languages?
Keep us up to date on the languages, Cole.
Yeah, well, this week I didn't even have that much time to do languages because I've just been doing some stuff with the Lingoholics podcast.
Let people know what's happening. What are we doing? What are we putting out?
Do we want to keep that a surprise, or do we want to tell people about that?
Nah, no manches.
No manches, tío. Cuéntanos,
okay,
tío.
we're just making highlight reel videos. So we're gonna start doing clips like in the Joe Rogan style. And so I was going through all of our videos like the past couple weeks, and since our episodes are pretty long, so that was very time consuming. So I haven't had too much time to dedicate to language studying because just due to the way that my days are set up, like during the middle of my day, like I have a big chunk where I like dedicate to like exercising and cooking and stuff like that. So the majority of my day I'm busy doing stuff, and then I just have like a small chunk in the evening to dedicate to whatever I want. And lately it was like mostly watching the videos and going through them. So I haven't been doing as much language studying as I want, but I'm done that now. So
yeah, man, we got the clips.
I've got that time freed up again. So yeah.
So boys.
All right,
boys. Marcus. I was just gonna ask what's going on with the language community in Calgary.
Not much.
I'm MIA. Dead? So I'm no, I don't know. Kodo, do you know? Have you kept in touch with anybody?
I'm also a little bit MIA, but it seems like it's kind of just going
limbo, COVID limbo.
COVID limbo, yeah.
Yeah, man. It sucks because I was thinking like Mark it's probably like a year now around this time when I met you, man. When that was in November. I remember going to the meetups. Like that became the new weekend ritual for me. Like I was so stoked for the weekends, man, going to the language meetup. And man, when was the last time Waves would have had us? February, March, I guess.
Changed. Something like that. I remember going to Waves to the language meetup and us joking. So Cody had just come back And everyone was just joking that Cody had COVID. Like, oh, no.
Oh yeah.
COVID.
Actually, that's one of the clips. That's speaking of the clips.
that's what.
Like we were asking Cody. He lived in China, but we're like, not in Wuhan. Whatever. That's one of the clips in the first highlight reels. But,
oh my god.
Yeah, boys. It's still 2020. You could say that much. But
I can't wait for this year to be over.
hopefully the language community in Calgary or wherever you are listening, that things can kind of get back. This summertime we had a bit of a renaissancito, the like hanging out in the park or doing different events. But
okay, so that's not going on anymore.
No.
Unbeknownst, but I guess Azrin put out that Korea notice. He's doing free Korean classes tonight.
Free Korean classes.
He's got a guy. So yeah, hopefully I'm not, Cody, do you know what time that is tonight?
5 to 6:30.
Hágale pues. So yeah, so there's that, little things like that, right? To look forward to. But in terms of like gathering, man, yeah, there's nada limonada. So así se pasa. But
that's a little unfortunate.
Yeah, but I just want to make a point. So Cody, you were doing this. Thanks again for doing this for the pod, but like doing the clips. So I was going to ask, when you guys have some, I don't know, like tasks to do you ever try to integrate language learning into it? Like I forget where my stack is. I have a boatload of marking, a big stack here today, but the way it's daunting, you look at that pile, but what I do, I'm going to put in my AirPod, I'm going to put up some Football Sunday, and it's at least it doesn't require a full-on thought for me to like mark it, so I can like get some Korean, get some Ukrainian, or look I say while I'm doing that. But do you guys, when you have like chores to do, are you trying to like use language learning?
Yeah, I can talk about this. So
Okay.
I've like classified all the different chores and activities that I can do some kind of active or even passive listening to.
Passive, yeah, even passive.
Okay, so one for me is when I'm driving. When I'm driving, that's probably the best time for me to listen to podcasts, because when I'm driving, like I just have the road to focus on, and I can also listen and like actually pay attention to what's happening in the conversation. And also when I am eating breakfast or eating a meal in general, that's also another really good time for me to listen to podcasts. But actually, some other kind of activities where people say they listen to podcasts and while they're doing a certain activity, those don't work for me. Like, for example, some people listen to podcasts when they're exercising. I cannot do that. I need music. I need music.
Yeah.
Really intense.
Exercise is a little trickier.
Yeah. And another one for me is when I'm going grocery shopping, I need to just listen to music.
Really?
As well. Because I can't. No, I need to. Yeah, I need to actively focus on everything that I'm doing in the grocery store, and also
you can't listen to anything.
Yeah, I can't listen to a podcast when I'm shopping.
Okay.
I can't focus on the conversation.
Right. Okay. Gotcha.
And maybe another one would be when you're cleaning. I can't listen to a podcast when I'm cleaning either.
What? Dude, I can't focus prime time. Doing the dishes, laundry.
Okay, doing the dishes is different because doing the dishes is very very kind of monotonous and like
very monotonous
all the time. So I don't need to put too much mental energy into it. So I can listen to a podcast when I'm doing dishes, but if I'm cleaning the bathroom or like vacuuming, well, obviously vacuuming because of the noise, but like if I'm cleaning the bathroom, I need to listen to music. I can't listen to a podcast.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. How about you, Marcus? How do you feel about
what do you do?
Dude, you're talking to a person who listens to podcasts 24/7.
Yeah. You do it in your lab too. Yeah.
I do it in my lab. Like I do it in my sleep. Legitimately. I do it in my sleep.
I go to bed listening to podcasts.
No, so when I wake up in the morning, I usually wake up around 6 o'clock or something like that on my own will. And then I just put on a podcast, and it doesn't necessarily have to be Spanish. It's often Spanish, but it doesn't necessarily have to be Spanish. But I put it on and then I go back to sleep. So I listen for a while and then I casually fall back asleep and then I wake up again at 8 and I've gone through like 3 podcasts.
Wow.
Right.
Like 3 episodes.
The classic sleep through podcast. It's like 4 episodes later.
And like another thing I do now, this is hilarious. But when I go to bed now, I usually throw on like one of these videos, learn German in your sleep.
Do those work?
Come on, but listen. Obviously, it doesn't work, but it's the best way to fall asleep because they put on this very soporific background music. So it's this very soothing background music. Okay. And then they have like a really nice voice that pronounces all the German. Yeah, exactly. Like this lady voice. It's very soothing. And then they have this very nice soothing background music as well. So it's perfect for falling asleep. So I use it kind of like a bed night story kind of thing.
The only reason I can see it, like, is it supposed to like trigger your dreams into a certain language? Like all of a sudden your dream, like, I don't know. People have talked, maybe you guys talked to this. I think I've dreamt in Spanish like twice in my life. I did
it the other day for the first time.
Right. So what does that mean?
I had a dream completely in Spanish.
What does that mean neurologically? Like,
it means that I'm.
Yeah, you're right in it, right? You're immersed. You're full on.
Yeah.
Right.
But that's what happens. That's how you know you're immersed. So like, for example, I've done some periods when I'm very focused on certain things for like work related. So I when I'm in these moments of intense focusing, I always dream about whatever I'm focusing on.
Yeah.
Always. And now I had this dream in Spanish, but it wasn't like I wasn't like studying Spanish. I was like hanging out with my friends.
Things are just happening in Spanish, I imagine.
Yes, things are just happening in Spanish, and I was like communicating in Spanish.
Right.
Yada yada yada. And I was actively experiencing, navigating through life in Spanish in my dream.
Because one never controls your own dream, right? So just like an unconscious dream.
That gets onto the question of lucid dreaming, which is something that I can do.
You can take it on lucid, like you know how to.
I can't do it on. It's not like every night I go to sleep and I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna lucid dream tonight. But like,
right,
I would say on average, maybe once every month or two, I end up having some kind of a lucid dream, and then I can just like do whatever I want in the dream. It's really cool.
Dude.
Well, I've had certain experiences like that as well, but they're rare. And it's always like, it's never when I'm in like deep sleep. It's always like in the morning if I wake up and then fall back asleep.
Yep, correct.
And then I'm like barely asleep and I'm able to kind of like control my dream. I'm like, okay, now I'm going to dream about this. And I'm able to like
a weird
paint a picture.
Yeah, that's the same with me when I've woken up, but I'm still like tired and then fall back asleep. That's the only time. Okay. But
anyway, languages.
Well, no, because dreaming.
Let's switch focus. So
I like, you guys are like tangents and rabbit holes. Come on.
No, but I loved it. But what were we talking about?
Well, you said for podcasts, that's what you listen to.
Oh, yeah.
Bed, right?
Yeah, my German.
Always bring it back.
Asleep.
No matter your tangent, just always bring it back. Yeah. Okay. So like it's the beauty of podcasts, like in any of your time, like when you're not actually working, like at least for me, you just like the AirPod, man. The AirPod is like my podcast stream of conscious. Just
so is this the extensive learning that you're talking about?
No. So extensive, I got this idea just from so the beauty of the Polyglot conference, some of those talks are still up. And there's one speaker, Judith Meyer, and she had talk about how to get into literature for foreign language. And she didn't really talk about like what level you need to be at, but just a strategy to jump in. So I'm guessing the strategy pertains to like a upper A2, lower B1 at least, and how intensive reading would be when you say you just take one page and you really focus on everything happening in that page. You're like, all right, I'm going to like underline vocab I don't know. I'm going to look at verb tenses. Like you really, really breaking it down and studying. Whereas So that'd be arguably intensive. So even for say like a language level, let's say I took the first level of Turkish on Memrise. I wrote out all the vocab. I made sentences with it. I practiced it. I would argue that's intensive. Extensive is when I went through 3 Turkish courses on Memrise. So I did 1,300 words on the Duolingo Memrise course. So I just like clicked like the word, wrote it down, clicked the word, wrote it down. And I've gotten a bit of an experience to be like, okay, this word's not really relevant or that's not like that. But I'm just writing. So I have this like, I probably have like 50 pages now. And so that was 1,300 words. Then I did the Memorize's own course. Turkish 1 was about 200 and some words. Then Turkish 2, 300 and some words. And there's a bit of repetition between those, but just writing and writing and writing and writing. And then just like starting to pick up patterns. Is that a pattern? Oh, okay. Like this is obviously the infinitive tense. Okay, some weird stuff happens when it's first person. Some weird stuff happens when it's second person. I can't say any of these words. Some words just sound cool. When you start looking at 1,300 words, you're like, oh, the word for like handsome is fun to say, but so it's like really extensive. And that ties into her reading as well. Whereas she just says, throw out your dictionary, throw out all that stuff, unless the word's coming up lots, and just keep reading, like keep going, keep trying to understand more and more and more and more. So I was like, what if you just took this approach to just starting any language? And then what I think where the acquisition will come in is going to be in the review of those words. So last night I slowed it down a bit. I just went back to the first set of notes for my Turkish, and I reviewed that, and then I went on to the Duolingo, the actual course, and just started doing their sentences, right? Like anyone who's done Duolingo, you just make the sentences. And yeah, man, it was just start to form a base. It's kind of mad, like just throwing up a bunch of sand, but then like the sediment, the first layer starts to like come down on itself. And that's what I would call the extensive approach. I don't know. Thoughts on
listening to a podcast, would that be extensive as well?
Oh yeah. And I'd argue I'm doing that for German right now. Like an easy German podcast is like a half hour to an hour about. And yeah, for sure, I would say so. Like you're just listening. This is a little more like fresh because I've only done like my little dabbles in Turkish before, but then I was like, okay, I want to go like really hard at it in a short amount of time. And so yeah, I don't know, because obviously the better, like for example, if I read just a normal book right now in Spanish, because I'm already B2 plus, right? It won't seem as super extensive or as intense because I already know that stuff. So I'm more talking about like for things that you don't know how to get into it. But I think, yeah, that massive content stream that could maybe apply to reading and just picking up a language. So I'd be interested to do like an experiment with someone that's never done languages and be like, hey, write out these 1,500 words in Spanish and just see what you start to notice. Because that's kind of what I'm doing with Turkish. That's and from that, and from what I extracted from that is I produced this those little greetings and sayings and stuff. But there's more where that came from, so to speak. And so yeah, I'm curious what Esther's doing. I haven't talked to her yet. We haven't checked in on that little challenge. But yeah, you copy out a lot of words and you just see like, oh, okay, like even animal words start to like recognize a few, or verb tenses. I haven't done past tense yet, but just some of the present progressives, and I don't know. It's just pattern recognition, as what I would argue extensive does. So try it here for
and at the end of the day, I think it's the most important to just have a healthy balance of this mixture. So
yes,
ideally it should be like you should be doing a third extensive, a third intensive, and a third review.
Well, there's different ratio.
Oh yeah, like it doesn't need to be exactly that, but you should have a relatively healthy balance with whatever your learning style is, and maybe review should be like the smallest portion, but intensive and extensive should generally be the same amount that you're
so what I do kind of a hybrid
Okay.
That's why obviously I listen to a
What
lot
does
of
that entail?
podcasts.
Yeah.
It entails that I always have my phone ready, and if I hear a word that I don't know, I look it up.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but that's
And then here,
arguably that's intensive.
yeah, but it's like I could be on my bike and I
Yeah.
could be listening to a podcast and I could be doing something completely different. And then I could intentionally or deliberately break, step off my bike, look up the word, save the word, and then keep biking.
That's still pretty extensive though, because
It's a
intensive is
hybrid.
like, yeah, but intensive is like you're really sitting down and you're really analyzing everything. When you
Yes.
like get off your bike like that and just make a note, that's still extensive.
Yeah, but it's more a hybrid because I'm taking the deliberate
Kind of a
action
hybrid.
of
Yeah.
looking up the word and trying to understand grammatically and
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Deliberate action is, if
whatever.
you're doing deliberate action, you're moving more towards an intensive approach.
Yeah.
But I guess, how often are you stopping though, Marcus? Is this a word that's coming up again and again and again? Or it's you had like you're listening to a lot and all of a sudden there's a word that came up that you didn't know. So it's like, okay.
I've been working a lot recently on improving my ability to memorize things. So you know, like the different
What's your
techniques.
approach to that? I'm interested. I'm curious about that.
Well,
Memory
so
techniques.
it's kind of funny. I know you're gonna like this, Ian, but for numbers, this is completely different. This doesn't have to do with languages, but for numbers, to memorize numbers, I think of sports stars, like sports players and
Yeah.
their numbers. And so if there's a number I have to memorize, I just picture all these sports stars. Like for example, Patrice Bergeron for the Bruins, he has number 37, or Sidney Crosby has 87. So if there's a number 3787, so 3,787, then I picture Patrice Bergeron and Sidney Crosby together.
Okay,
That's what I do. That's what I do for numbers.
Dude,
that's kind of funny. So for the
no,
sports fan,
because pause. Oh yeah, okay. But you just hit on something I was obsessed with for, I'm gonna say 2 years, which is mnemonics. Which I'd love to get into this a bit more because you just gave a classic example.
yeah, but that's what I do the same thing for words in Spanish.
Correct. You can do it for anything. You can do it. This doesn't apply just to languages. If you want to remember all the presidents of the United States or all the prime ministers, that you make up stories, mnemonics. So for yours, for example, and there's memory guys that talk. You could picture like, okay, so Patrice Bergeron's the first number, right? 37.
Mm-hmm.
So you picture him at a bar. Okay, he's waiting. All of a sudden, door opens up. Sidney Crosby walks in, sits next to him in the same pattern. And this might sound ridiculous to the person. It doesn't matter. The whole point is the ridiculousness because it's more memorable. So then they're just hanging out. They cheers or whatever. And then you just have a stronger image of Bergeron and Crosby hanging out. And then if you want to get into memory palaces, you put this in a place that you're actually familiar with. So maybe your place in Barcelona, you picture Bergeron sitting on the couch next to Crosby. Okay. Mm-hmm. And then now you want to remember so then another number, then you'd put two other hockey players next to the door type thing. And this is like a mental image,
I know.
map in your mind.
This is what I'm working on. This is the classic, like the
mnemonics.
Mnemonics are like the classic way to improve your memory. So I have another example for a Spanish
memory
word.
champions use. Okay.
I have another example. Ensanchar. It means to widen something, to separate, to widen, ensanchar algo. So what I think of is Pedro Sanchez, the president of Spain, and how he's polarizing the country. So he's widening.
Ensanchar.
Polarizar, exactamente. So he's widening the political beliefs of the population. So that's how I remember ensanchar.
Yeah, and then as a memory guy, I'd be like, all right, Marcus, exaggerate that memory. So imagine he's like up at the podium of the presidency, and he's got both his hands, and he's like pushing them out. It's like, how do you make the memory more vivid, the image more vivid, right? Because ensanchar.
Yeah, and another example. Links. I have another example. Apostar. You guys know what that means?
To bet.
Yeah, to bet, exactly. So I'm imagining myself just placing a bet on like a Post-it thing. And then I don't know, that's just like what I remember. And maybe I'm posting it, yeah. But that's just the way I remembered it.
You got your NFL ticket, your over-unders.
Yeah, like I'm posting,
post it on your fridge.
I'm writing my bet on a Post-it.
Yes. Correct. Yeah, dude. So, this is.
So that's like another example.
Okay, I
There's
got
so many. All right, Cody. What do you think?
So, I don't really use things like memory palace or mnemonics unless they're very obvious.
Correct. Okay, this is what I've moved more towards. So go on, Cody.
Yeah, but for some people it works. But for me personally, the thing is that the effort to result ratio is not worth it for me because I need to put a lot of effort into like thinking like, okay, like how am I going to make all these associations? And then I need to come up with some kind of crazy elaborate memory palace. And then I end up spending more time doing that than actually memorizing the word. But for me, that's why I like reading so much, because the written word speaks to me so much. And that's just how I think. Like sometimes it's so strong that I think in written language. Like, for example, yesterday, this is crazy. I couldn't believe this. Yesterday, somebody told me to think of a color. And the first thing that popped in my head was literally the word green, not the color green.
In your mind's eye.
Yeah.
Like Green.
Like Green. Yeah. I did not see the color. I saw the word green.
Okay. Right. Correct.
That my brain doesn't work like that.
Well, that's interesting. Because I feel like memory can be like Kodo's method. Because your mind just has such an association with green. It's the written form.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that's just how my brain works. I just think in written word and language.
Right. Yeah. And now, okay, going back to mnemonics, I agree. It is a bit like there is some effort that goes into it. So this is where I've like went away from it a bit. But I think in the short term, like sometimes it just takes a little bit of imagination. You can come up with stuff like ensanchar. Like exactly, right? Just
you got it. You got it now.
Oh yeah, no, dude. I used to do this for everything. Like I did this in front of a university class one time. I was the prof. I acted like I was the prophet of mnemonics. I was like, give me a word, any word, give me a word. And then what's a butterfly? I always remember this for some reason. What's butterfly in German? Schmetterling?
Schmetterling, yeah.
Schmetterling. And the guy's like, Schmetterling. And I was like, all right, Schmetterling. It's a butterfly. So, okay, I think it's on the spot. Like Schmetterling. Ling, what's Ling? Maybe it's like a Chinese name, Ling. So you just picture a
exactly butterfly
in China flying over Schmetter, and he's what's Schmet like Schmet. Yeah. Anyways, you got to kind of build on it. And this right. So what I'm doing right now, Cody, you're saying that does take effort. That does take
like for
time,
me, like
right? Because I'm thinking of it. But then next time you're Schmetterling, though, I'm just gonna be like, oh, there's a butterfly flying over China in my head. And I think mnemonics are kind of like training wheels. They're meant to be dropped off at one point. It's not like when you're B2 Spanish, you're still thinking of all these mnemonics that you came up with when you were A1.
Yeah, that's true.
But all right, so Marcus, so my question now for you is how intensive are you doing this for words? Like, are you just thinking them? Are you writing it out? And
well, I have a list. Obviously, I have lists. I have so many lists. So you guys know on PCs, you can do like the sticky notes.
Okay.
I have that for every language.
Right.
Including English.
So what does that entail? Just a word on a note?
That entails every time I find a new word that I don't know, I write it down and then I try to memorize it with mnemonics. Okay. But I also write it down because I want to go back and review that. And I do this in everything.
Okay. So my question is, how does your review work? Because this is where spaced repetition, like Anki, Memorize, arguably Pimsleur.
So here's the thing. This is why I love the sticky notes app on YouTube, or not YouTube, on my computer.
Yeah.
I know I got my YouTube to be my computer, but every time I start my computer, all these tabs come up essentially. So I just go through them every morning. I just review everything. And this is not just languages. I do this for everything. Like if there's a new concept or a new term, there's new terminology that I learned regarding anything, I write it down. Like Octothorpe.
Oh yeah, what did that mean again?
That's the hashtag. Hashtag.
Oh yeah.
Octothorpe.
See,
I wrote that.
So maybe I needed a mnemonic for that, like an octopus hanging on a number sign.
No, I my mnemonic is a thorn and an octopus. Octothorpe.
How do you tie that? But you got to tie it to the number sign though. Like let's think about
but that's easy. That's easy. That's just easy because it's a hashtag. It's Twitter. It's like that's not hard for me. The hard thing for me is to remember what the word is.
Okay. See, I would argue, an octopus getting a thorn in it, but you got to incorporate the number sign somewhere in that to finish.
No, but that's for some reason that's not important. That's secondary. Like the Octothorpe, it's just like just the fact that there's a word called Octothorpe for the number sign or the pound sign. It's called a pound sign, right?
Yeah.
It's just that's enough of a mnemonic within itself for me to make it easy to remember it. Yeah, no, it's interesting because I'm more the thing now, like Cody said, if something's like obvious, and that's what I do in my classroom now too. I'm trying to think of an example off the top of my head, but if something's like really obvious, I'll be like, hey, think of this. But for something obvious, but there's a guy, I forget his name. The course is on Memorize, like all this stuff I find. It's called Remembering the Kanji. So cool though, for future reference for Japanese, if you want to take this approach. Like he writes out a story for all of the kanji and there's radicals. Is Chinese, like the radicals in Chinese. So he has a story about the radicals and how they come together. So there's he has like a paragraph story about every kanji. And that's supposed to be your mnemonic story to remember.
Wow.
So it's imagine somebody's like already written your mnemonics for you in a way. And you just follow along with it.
Okay.
So, I mean, there's different things. Like Marcus thought of an octopus and a thorn, right? I could have thought of something different. So there's like a personalized approach. But you can do this for like Benny Lewis from Fluent in 3 Months. He always gives the classic example, like beach in Spanish, playa. So he pictures this dude like trying to be all gangster like yo, what's up, playa, on the beach, right? Like playa, like any kind of association.
You know what? For me, it needs to be more like even more obvious than that. Like I'll give you guys a really funny example. So in German, how do you say fat?
Gross.
Dick.
Oh yeah. Your mnemonics can get.
That's right.
So it needs to like clearly come to me. Like it clearly sounds like something in English or another language that I've learned.
It does. Okay. Yeah, man. Right. And then just to like fully explain like the memory palace angle. So say I'm in my classroom right now and someone's like, hey, Ian, learn the Hebrew alphabet. So what I could do here is just visualize like the aleph, the A there, then whatever the next letter is, the beta. And I just have this like string of the letters in my mind based off locations in this classroom. And then even when I'm sitting at home, I can like visualize my classroom and picture all the letters of the alphabet. So this can work for like sequences, the US presidents, whatever, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. For me personally, I have moved away from this. I'm just more of a watch the paint dry kind of guy now.
Yeah.
That makes
sense. That method works as well. So I'll give you another example. Just if you learn a word, just repeating it enough times, then you're gonna forever have that voice, your own voice in your head, repeating that word. So for example,
no, but the question is how many times? That's the great mystery sometimes. How many times?
Not that much. Not that much. So what I do, I just walk around and repeat it until I get it. I do that a lot.
What do you mean though? Like,
okay, I'll give you an example, man. I'll give you an example. So when I was in Costa Rica, I hiked.
Costa Rica, man.
I hiked obviously Cerro Chiripo, which we talked about on an earlier
nice.
episode of the pod.
That we
But I also
did.
hiked another mountain called
Pura vida.
Ventisqueros. And I had
Skeros?
such
¿Qué es
a
eso?
Ventisqueros. I don't know. It doesn't. It's just a name. It's just a name. I
word.
don't know if it means anything. But I had such a hard time remembering Ventisqueros, like the name.
Yeah.
Such a hard time. So what I started doing was just basically just repeating it over and over again in my head. Ventisqueros, Ventisqueros, Ventisqueros, Ventisqueros, Ventisqueros, Ventisqueros, Ventisqueros. And then I just did that for like 10 minutes. And then after that, it was like in there.
Really though? You didn't go crazy? 10 minutes?
Yeah, but for you here, Marcus, that works for you because you're an audio-based learner. If I do that, it doesn't work. There's been multiple words that people have tried to teach me where I've only heard it spoken. Like they're like somebody will tell me something kind of like a cool kind of word, and they'll tell me it over and over again. And every time they see me, they'll say, "Hey, do you remember how to say this?" I forget every time.
Cody, I promise you're going to remember what an octothorpe is.
Oh,
you're going to remember how to say it.
2 episodes in, I think I'll remember.
I looked at it written, and also when you said the word octothorpe again, I pictured the word octothorpe.
Yeah, but I'm still saying it. It's still auditive.
Okay, but when you said that initially today, I had forgotten. I had legit.
Yeah, but now I promise you guys are gonna remember octothorpe.
Double assist. But what I would argue, what would make this stronger, is it has to come up in another context now for me. So yes, I've heard from you guys on the podcast. That's arguably still one context. If I'm reading a news article, if I'm listening to the radio, blah, blah, blah, and all of a sudden I hear the word octothorpe, maybe Sam Harris says it someday because he does stuff like that. And I'll be like, oh, octothorpe, like I know what that is. Yeah. Just like when Cody gave the example of defenestrate on the pod. So that was my one context. Yeah. But then I'm listening to Sam Harris say defenestrate. I'm like, oh, like, boom. So I'm talking about interlocking contexts.
Yes.
So that instead of just being me like, octothorpe. Oh,
I'm picturing Sam Harris. I'm picturing Sam Harris right now saying like, "Oh, there's this octothorpe going viral on Twitter."
Octothorpe, Trump sucks.
But yes, I agree with what Ian's saying. Like for me, it's not like I only need to see the written word. If I have interlocking context, like he said, then yes, I'll remember a spoken word that I've only heard auditorily.
Yeah, like for the rest of my life, I know what untar is now because I messed up and was like uler. So don't be afraid. Like one's got to be afraid not to be afraid of the mistakes either, because I think this is part of the glory of making mistakes. Is you're just like, oh snap, like. Yeah, no, that's not what that is. So you have like a memory, right, that like corrects it. It's fascinating though, because even with this Turkish stuff, so basically I'm trying like, okay, let's just take my counter. So I went through like 1,300 Turkish words here. There's no way in hell I'm making 1,300 mnemonics. Just like click, write it down. I could. Yes, I could. It'd take way longer. I could, yes. Sorry, when I said that, what I meant by that, I meant I couldn't have done it as fast as I did with making mnemonics. So basically, just writing them out, and it was just more getting a feel, noticing the patterns, and then eventually with my paint dry method, I would argue that's more of the review. And that's what I'm doing with like Talk to Me in Korean on Memrise. I just go like, this was the level 1 vocabulary, click, click, click, click. And I would tie that into the overlearning. So basically what I mean overlearning, don't trust your memory is basically what I'm arguing.
Yeah.
Like hit it even more than you think. But that could be with mnemonics, saying it to yourself 10 times, seeing it written. Like, I think there's multiple ways, and I'm not a neurologist to like pinpoint exactly what the mind is doing. But this is just pure trial and error, the way that I've come about trying this. But see, arguably what I've been doing before, even with the dabbles, is just little bits at a time, like 10 minutes of Portuguese. That's not super extensive. And there's a lot of cognates, so it's arguably not even that intensive. But I think it's taking an approach one feels comfortable and that they feel like they're making progress with. So, Margaret, if you're feeling you're making progress with mnemonics, Cody, if you're feeling you're making power with the extensive reading, like I think I think there's multiple ways the mind can pick up on these things. So
yeah, absolutely.
Another thing, keep going. Sorry.
There's just one more thing I want to say about this memory stuff, and then I actually want to switch the focus if that's all right.
I got
Sure.
it.
Yeah, so I don't know if you guys probably don't have this problem, but I don't know, maybe some other people have this problem. Sometimes when I'm studying some new language, I'll look at something or I'll hear something just like once or twice.
Yeah.
And then when I review it again, I'll like be testing myself to see if I can remember it without actually looking at it. And it's like if I'm trying to test to see how good my memory is, and then if I don't get it, then I think like, oh, like I'm stupid for not. But like that's a ridiculous thought to have. And like you like Ian said, like you can't really overlearn. So you can't look at something too much. That doesn't really exist. Like if you want to look at something 50 times, then yeah, go for it.
Well, it's not efficient. That's my point.
Well, that's the biggest thing. That's the golden nugget. What's the most efficient?
To see it once and then remember it.
Correct. But that's hard.
Yeah, but we're not robots, right?
I know.
Yeah, but I feel like I've been able to significantly reduce the amount of times that I have to look at a word in order to understand what it means and to use it myself. That's my point.
And this is where I'd argue relevancy plays a big role. And what I mean by that, how important is it that I remember this word?
Yeah, exactly.
Because yes, if it is important, if it is relevant, then more of an effort, more of a conscious effort needs to be made. Like I was looking at some words in Turkish for this thing. I was like, I will not be using that with the challenge. Like,
what about Octothorpe?
Yeah, Octothorpes in Turkey.
How do you say Octothorpe in Turkish?
I'll get back to you on that, and I'll have a sick mnemonic with it too.
Start how to say Octothorpe in all languages.
All right, Cody. You said
That's gonna be my party trick. Sorry, Cody.
All right, buenas memorias.
Okay, so at the beginning of the episode, Ian mentioned that there is a difference between formal and informal in Turkish, and something I've noticed is that in English, it seems like English so far from all the languages that I've touched on, English is the only language that doesn't distinguish between formal and informal.
I want to play a devil's advocate with this after, though. Okay, what do you? Yeah, you're right, Colo. Because we talked about this with I forget what about Mac about thou being English's old too, and how that eventually went away or evolved out. And we just say you, right? And it's always a tricky concept when I teach my students because, it's like technically you guys should be saying usted or vous to me. It's just showing you you're catching up on these cues. And I would argue with English, yes, not in the actual words, but I feel it's like we still talk to people. We still have registers, social registers.
Oh yeah, in
terms
of speech, absolutely. But I'm just talking about
the words. Yes. Yeah, you're right. Yes, so I think English like the only one that doesn't.
Why don't we look this up?
Because every other language,
Boy, same thing in Swedish. We don't differentiate. Like there is a formal. There are formal pronouns, but they're very antiquated and we don't use them. It's kind of silly. It's kind of like use usted in Spain is super antiquated. Like you would never call anyone usted.
Really?
In Spain?
I
like an old abuelita.
Okay. Maybe if it's like a very old person or a super, I don't know if it's like insanely formal, you would say usted. Like if you're going to like
Oh no,
award
man.
ceremony and you're receiving a reward for something honorable that you've done, you're getting it directly from the King of Spain. You would be, oh, señor, usted, muchas gracias, usted.
No, man. Like this is
But
interesting.
yeah, but like I've
Okay,
been saying here, people here never use usted. Like if you're in class and you're talking to your
so your
professor, you
boss, you
say,
would use tu?
oh yeah, oh yeah.
Okay, but does that say more about like the relationship you have with him, or like from day one, you're just like tuteando, you're just using tu.
Yeah, you're
So,
tutear todo el tiempo.
oh, that's interesting. Okay, because that might just speak to
Todo
more
el
like
tiempo.
societal things, but I feel like I've instinctively, with language learning, have this like tu usted thing now. Even like I have a buddy from Venezuela. He's a bit older than me. We see each other. Usually it's kind of like more formalish settings. And I feel uncomfortable saying tu. I was like, ¿Cómo está usted? Like it's kind of like
No,
you're getting like,
I obviously understand how it works in Latin America. It's completely different.
okay, Latin America. Maybe that's maybe more of my context then. Right.
Right.
Okay, but Spain then has dropped this or is
Yeah,
dropping it.
if you come here and you say ustedes, they're gonna laugh at you.
Okay, that's different though.
Usted or ustedes.
Well, no, but in Spain you should use vosotros for ustedes.
Yeah, but you would use ustedes in the same setting as you're using usted. That's my point.
No.
Like in Spain, yes. Ustedes. ¿Cómo están ustedes?
Yeah,
Or ¿cómo está usted?
no, but when I talk to my class, they're all younger than me. I say ustedes because it's plural.
Yes.
Right?
So
I'm
ustedes
not
is
being
the
formal
plural.
with them.
Yes, but in Spain, ustedes is the plural of usted.
Okay, but you wouldn't use
So okay, so let's say you're getting no, escúchame, tío.
Estoy escuchando, güey.
If you are getting your prize, Cody's laughing.
Mi premio. Premio Nobel.
If you're getting your
Gracias,
premio, if you're
Premio de
going and
lingüística,
receiving a
¿sí?
prize for
Okay.
something honorable that you've done, you've saved a
mosquito
little
language
baby.
research.
You've saved a little baby from getting run over by a train or something like that, and you're getting this
normal way?
honorable citizens premio prize from the king and queen of Spain. You would go up and you would talk to them as ustedes. You would address them as ustedes.
I wouldn't say vosotros.
No, you would say ustedes.
Okay. Correct. Okay, now I get you. Yeah.
Right. But if you're talking
vosotros, though.
If you're talking to your alumnos, you would say vosotros.
Gotcha.
¿Cómo estáis vosotros?
Okay, I understand you now. Yes. So formal plural.
Formal plural
Which
is ustedes.
which like Latin America doesn't have. You just say ustedes formal or informally.
Yes,
Okay.
you're always formal. So I would argue that Latin America, you don't have a formal because you're always formal. So you're not differentiating.
No, you still have
between formal and informal. Yeah,
no.
in Mexico, but tu doesn't exist in certain countries. Like in
like Nicaragua, Honduras, vos.
You say vos.
But vos
like
is tu, though.
That's true. Okay, fair enough.
Yeah. But if I was meeting an older gentleman in Nicaragua, una nica viejo, I'd be like, ¿Cómo está usted?
Right.
That's just like an impulse now. Like because I would feel like so wrong to say tu. I'd feel like I was.
But even if you're hanging out with your buddies, you would still say usted. And even if if you go to the grocery store in Central America, you would say ¿Cómo está usted?
To someone I didn't know.
Yeah, anyone. Like even
no,
if it's
buen amigo,
even if
like, ¿Cómo estás?
Yeah, probably. But if even if it's like a peer, so if it's someone of your age, you would still talk to them as usted if you don't know them, right?
If you don't know them. Yeah, and then that's the whole like podemos tutear. Like I've gotten that.
Right. You have to ask if we can
kind of or they initiate. It's a weird initiation.
Right. But here it's ¿Cómo estás?
Okay. So Cody, do you find an answer? Because this ties into Ukrainian has this, German has, everyone has it.
Yeah, and I'm actually just thinking while you guys are just like arguing with each other. I'm just
Buen
thinking
argumento,
of,
es un buen argumento.
I'm just
Vivo
thinking
por eso.
of all the different, like, I guess you could call it the formal informal barrier in,
Sure,
in
sure.
all the languages that I know.
Uh-huh.
And it's different for every language. So this is culturally dependent.
Right. And what I meant by devil's advocate is like I wouldn't go to my principal here, my boss, and be like, "Sup?" Or
Well, no, of course.
Yeah,
yo,
but
dude.
that's not what they do here.
I
It's
know.
not like
But I'm just saying English. Okay, my argument is English accomplishes this formality gap, so to speak, via other means. Just
Yes.
tone of voice, vocab that you use, the formalities. So like, even if I was to meet like some higher up authority, like the mayor or somebody, you're being respectful, right? Whereas like this is where I need to get more into Korean, the social dynamics, because there it's even more regimented,
Yeah.
right? And Matt versus Japan, great YouTube channel, shout out. He had a video with a guy, and they were talking about the differences between Japanese and Korean, and how arguably there's even more than three, I guess, of these regiments. But they were just giving examples of like, okay, this is the most informal way to say it. This is a little more formal. And his metaphor was basically like, imagine you're going to a party where everyone's just dressed real casually, but you show up with like a tuxedo. That's when you know you're being too formal. And then vice versa, if it's a tuxedo party and you show up with like baggy jeans, you're being too informal. And that's those registers. And I think as a foreign language learner, navigating the formalities is it's so cool. It's like it's another element of the culture that you're taking on.
but it's like, okay, in Spain, if you're at a restaurant and you're trying to get the waiter over to your table and ask for dessert, you wouldn't
Garçon.
say, hey, tío, dame el postre, tío. Like
Oye,
you
tío.
wouldn't do that.
Tío,
You wouldn't say
dame
that.
pinche postre.
Dame.
Hey, actually, I have something really funny to say about this and Chinese, because so in China, I found like the formality levels there.
Uh-huh.
Basically, they have like a tu and usted. Like
Right.
they have ni and nin, and nin is the formal you, and you only really ever hear that in like a customer service setting. So like
Mm-hmm.
if you're being served, or like if you're on the telephone, then they'll use nin. And
Okay.
also when you're talking to like clearly like senior citizens, then you'll use nin. But other than that, and maybe like your boss, and obviously very people that
High up
are in a
officials.
much higher authority position than you. But like generally with people, you just use ni, like the informal you. And but one thing that's kind of different is like when you're at a restaurant, like you just said, the culture there in restaurants is so different. Like there's people yelling all the time. It's so loud. And like when you want to get a waiter's attention, you can literally do the equivalent of "Hey, garçon!" Like,
Right.
yeah, but in
And
Chinese they say "fu yuan," so you can literally yell across the restaurant, and be like, "Hey, fu yuan!" Like,
well, okay, that must tie into Korean too, because on the Jogyo episode, like they talk about how that's how you get someone's attention at a Korean restaurant. If you don't say like Jogyo, Jogyo, like you'll get ignored too. So I'm
yeah,
just
but
kind
What episode is that?
talk to me in Korean when they talk to you about like or maybe it's Pimsleur. I forget, one of the two. It's like Tokyo. Like you that's how you get attention,
mhm.
but this is more like restaurant culture.
Yeah, and but even there's a big difference between Korea and China though, because Korea is much more formal. So even when you're like
Yeah.
yelling at
Okay.
the waiter,
Gotcha.
like saying "chogi yo," you're still using the yo formal
Uh
form,
huh.
right? Like you're not saying "chogi."
Gotcha. Gotcha. Yes. Yeah. That's right. That's right. Uh huh.
Yeah,
Tokyo. Uh huh.
yeah, and I found so from my, I mean, you have discovered this too from our Korean learning journey so far, is that
Uh huh.
I would say Korean is probably the most formal language I've run into. It seems like
Okay.
the only time you can really use the informal form is when you're talking to close friends.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. And I think Japanese is a little less, according to sources.
Really? I've heard the opposite.
So what
No,
about
but you just said Korean's the
Portuguese?
most formal.
What about Portuguese? So in Brazil, they say a senhora, a senhora, right? But then for the informal, they use a você, which is como usted.
Right.
Do you know this, Ian?
Right.
Have you
você,
come across this in your dabbling?
Yes, você. For some reason, my head você was, because they don't use two in Brazil.
No, they do. In Portugal, they use tu.
But not in Brazil. Brazil, they use você.
And then the same, I'm pretty sure they use the same verb conjugation for você and a senhor, a senhora. But then in Brazil or in Portuguese,
yes,
they have two different verb conjugations. So they have the verb conjugation for tu, and then they have the verb conjugation for você.
Okay,
a senhor,
right.
A senhora.
A senhora. Okay, yeah. I guess in my dabbles, I haven't looked at the formal two more because você just keeps coming up, and I hear it in so many, like when I listen to Brazilian music, você, like they always use você, and like in music never uses formal language ever.
Right.
Ever.
So that's what I'm saying. It's super weird. It's super weird. So in Brazil, você, which is the formal in Portugal, they use that for the informal.
Yeah. I was listening to something recently. Saw like a Brazilian guy was in Portugal and they were having such a hard time understanding. They just decided to speak English or something. It was like, I don't know if that's a common case, but like if the languages are that different. I just want to bring up a point. This was actually Marcus, when we did your first Going to Barcelona episode, I was reading George Orwell's Homage to Catalonia. And so this kind of, I'm telling you a little bit of politics here. So when Orwell was with the like they were fighting against the Franquistas, he talks about the specific moment when he was Orwell didn't have that great of Spanish, but he was talking about how they were actually trying to root out the usage of like señor and formal language like that, because the communist ethos, or you get egalitarian ethos, whatever you want to call it, how do you have an equal society or a more, you eliminate these formalities. So I thought that was like an interesting political.
Who was trying to do this?
The Spanish that Orwell was fighting with, they were trying to, like, you wouldn't say señor.
The Republicans?
Yeah. You'd be using more like kamarad, or how we always joke around, like comrade, tovarish, Russian, Ukrainian. That, and if you hear that, like, you can hear that in lots of, like even the Chernobyl series, I think they're like comrade. Like that's like a more equal language by like consciously rooting out these formalities, which I was like, okay, that does make sense if you're trying to have everyone be equal in that way. So yeah, eliminating formalities was what Orwell experienced.
Yeah, I can see how that's a political thing.
Yeah, totally political. But I just thought it's interesting because they noticed, like usted, like, do you think you're better than me? Like if you're like usted, I'm tú kind of thing. Like they noticed that imbalance kind of thing.
Yeah, it's definitely a political thing. And that's why it doesn't exist anymore in España.
Right. Barely. Yeah. So, tovarish, Colo, ¿qué piensas, güey?
I mean, yeah, it's true. I actually have read about that too. So.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, it's something I don't know how to instill it quite in students, because the odd student will reply with "y usted," "y vous." I'm not like I don't come down harsh on them, but I'm just like, when they say that to me, it's like, you're picking up on this. You're picking up like I'm older.
So okay, younger. So what do they actually call you?
Oh, like any teacher, like Senor, Rainier, like to all my Spanish students, I'm just Senor.
Okay, but do they use usted?
Not many. Many use just two, and I don't get mad at them because it means at least they're using Spanish. But I do.
That should be a big thing. That's important.
I know it is important. It is important, and I do an activity. I give them all like roles. So for example, like you're the principal, you're the prime minister, you're the army general, like everyone has a role, and then other kids get like you're a grade 4 student, you're a dog, you're a pet, or whatever. Like
You're a dog.
like no, when you talk to your dog, you say like "Cómo estás? ¿Cómo está, Mika?"
Yeah,
Like whatever, right? Like and yes, you kind of try and drill it. And it's something I revisit. So anytime we're like doing an activity, but if you were talking to this guy right now, what would you be using? Tu or usted? And so there's just ways I find like one lesson doesn't really like sink in to their language usage. So it's something you got to like throughout the semester, like keep reviewing and reminding them like, hey, this would be fu, this would be usted.
And do you to them?
Yeah, of course. Yeah,
I would, wait, why is that wait, why would you call them two?
Because that's how it works. They're younger than me.
Like, yeah, I guess it doesn't necessarily have to. So like, I'm not.
That's
so
weird. That's weird. That's being too formal.
Oh, maybe. Yeah. I don't know. Like, I'm definitely not an expert in this. As I said, I'm in Spanish mode right now, so I to everybody.
Right, but I still find it weird. Like, anybody younger than you, tutear hasta el fin del mundo.
Yeah. Okay. Maybe. Yeah. I didn't know that.
Yeah. And then I find it because even in Ukrainian, there's the expression "można na te" is like, can we use te instead of ve? Because that's the equivalent. Te is tu and ve is usted. And just that expression. And I think, amongst peers, if you're being too formal, like people the same age, you'd be like, yeah, dude, like, tutear.
Yo.
Yeah.
It's a pinch.
Pinch. Capaz pinch.
Cody.
What are you doing, Cody? You meditating or what?
No, I'm good, man. I'm good.
Do you have anything to say? I thought you had something to say.
Yeah, I was like, suspense, drum roll. Put a little drum roll.
I thought you said something.
Oh, I just said chill.
Oh, chill. Oh,
chill,
yeah.
Dude. Chill.
Yeah.
Yo, what number is chill in Korean?
Chill? That's 7.
Oh, damn. He's good. Yeah, man. It's interesting. Because sometimes I feel like in a foreign language classroom, you are limited sometimes to like getting bigger cultural points across, but it's still something you can emphasize.
Well, that's important, right? Not to just teach the language, but to teach the culture.
Oh, absolutely, dude. And even this my 3rd year teaching high school, I'm more on the culture train day.
And that's really what it is. It's not learning languages, it's learning cultures.
Yeah, like you're wearing something right now, La Liga. Like, how fascinating is it to give a lesson about La Liga and the teams in Barcelona and Messi? Where's Messi from? And how does that work in Spanish society? Like, dude, that's to put on like a conjugations and prepositions. Like, you got to tie it. You got to weave both. And what language teachers now are catching on to is like, hey, how can I teach culture through language, basically? So I start my class every day. It's called the cultural question, and it's only, I speak in Spanish or French, but it's about something culturally relevant. And then you try and like, okay, can I make this point across where they're learning about something like La Liga, or what we were talking about the other day? We're talking about, in French class, we're talking about New Orleans, because New Orleans has got a fascinating French-Spanish history. So yeah, man, because a language class, I think, could be really bland if you don't tie in that.
Yeah. And that's what I looking back at my high school language classes that I had to take, that's why I hated them, because they were so dull, bland. There was no culture. It's just German verb conjugations every day. It was
and imagine en masse how many people have that association with a foreign language classroom, which is not good.
No, it's horrible.
Not good for the teachers, the students, the attitudes toward languages. Arguably, this could reflect into just other people. Like, if you just have that association with foreign languages, you just think that's the Trump's wall, right? That's the permanent wall. It's there forever because like there's no way I'm getting over that wall. Like language barrier, right? Like I got to do it. I'm not gonna go back to conjugating verbs or lo que sea that I did. So it's like, okay, if you switch those associations, right? You come to language class on the first dia, and I'm like, tu nombre, ¿qué es tu nombre? Oh, estás aquí. Okay, aquí está mi plan de asientos. Estás aquí, and they're like. Spanish like on the first day, like no manches, man.
Ahora aguardiente para todos.
Yeah, like okay, tú aquí. No, tú no aquí. Tú estás aquí. Oh, ¿es tu amigo? ¿Es tu amigo? Ah, esto hombre, ven para acá. Like, is he waving towards me? And like, man, you got a language teacher. I don't know. I'm still learning a lot myself. I'm not saying no myself, but it's like, man, how do you change it up? How do you just change up those associations? And yeah, it doesn't have to always like be culture. Like some kid could be like really into Minecraft or some weird, like, all right, let's do something with like Spanish and Minecraft, like all types of associations you can do.
Yeah, I've really been tapping into this in my own teaching. Cause like, before I was
Minecraft.
What?
More of a Tetris guy personally, but
I asked what Minecraft.
No, because in the past I used to be like very focused on like just like teaching the language, and lately I've been bringing people's interests and cultural points, and it's a slow process because I still have one of those old habits where I'm like, actually there's been a few of my lessons recently where I've realized like halfway through I'm like, oh my god, like this is boring, like they're probably so bored right now, so I'm doing my best to adjust that.
Oh, I just learned a great word in Korean while I was watching nunchi. It's like basically the equivalent of like reading the room, reading the vibe. And yeah, as a teacher, I find you gotta have nunchi, be like, ooh, this is not engaging, or this is
absolutely.
I'm seeing some yawns here, folks. All right, let's start a fire or something.
Yeah, for sure.
But as a teacher, that takes time though. To develop that, man. And culturally wise, it's just slowly incorporating things, but
you gotta stay on your toes, right?
Like
you gotta be able to pivot. Pivotar.
You
guys know that pivotar?
Es muy inglesa eso, ¿no?
Hay que pivotar,
pivotar.
More important.
Anglicisms are starting to piss me off, I find. It's like
pivotar.
English, man. English is.
Are you sure?
Apparently 10% of.
Are you sure though? Pivot to pivotar as.
Oh, I thought you were telling me the truth.
No, I don't know if it's
I don't
English
know.
thing.
But
pivotar is a Spanish word. I learned that.
That one doesn't feel right. Sometimes I feel like that's a good Latinized etymology. Pivotar doesn't seem right.
Yeah, but maybe pivotar originated from Spanish.
Maybe I'm pissed off at Españolismos.
So. All right, boys, what do you guys got going on for the rest of the day?
What's happening today?
You doing any languages or what?
Oh yeah, dude. I got once we get our routines established. So I listen to an easy German podcast, a Talk to Me Korean podcast, a Ukrainian lessons podcast, and I found this funny. I like finding the stuff on the outskirts. I found these dudes. It's a Learn Croatian podcast. It's just these 3 dudes hanging out, giving these like super cash Croatian lessons. So even if I just like listening to their podcast actually. So I'm gonna listen to those 4 while I mark. That's what I'm gonna do.
Fair enough.
Media.
What about you, Mr. Code?
I think I'm gonna go pretty hard because I got a lot of free time today, so I think I'm gonna go hard with languages today.
What are you doing?
Korean, of course. I'm gonna be hitting my Korean books and my Korean videos pretty far. I found this really good channel on YouTube that has like they just give very like a good duration of length for video, and they present everything in pure Korean, but it's like very simple language. It's really
comprehensible input.
And I might go for a walk and And oh yeah, that Korean class is later, so I
A
might
las 5. A las 5.
do that Korean class.
Is that Zoom?
Yeah, I think that'll be on Zoom.
Zoomiendo.
Yeah, and also probably just like chilling and watching some Netflix and stuff like that. So pretty
All right,
relaxed.
so
Tío
sí,
Sueco. Tío Sueco.
mucho para descansar. Yeah, no, I've had a weekend filled with Castellano. All this morning and all day yesterday. So I have some other work to do, non-language stuff. Kind of boring, but gotta get it done.
Yes, we gotta get it done.
Gotta get it done. So I'm gonna work on that for the rest of the night, and yeah, whatever. It's Sunday night.
Domingo, way.
Sunday night aquí en Barcelona.
Barça.
Buen fin de semana, pero a ver.
Yeah.
A ver qué traiga a la próxima semana.
Así es, tío. Así es.
Entonces, all right.
¿Concluimos?
All right. Concluimos.
All right. We got to do this more, boys. We got to plug listening. If you're listening, all your podcatchers, Apple, Stitcher, TuneIn, SoundCloud. Follow us on one of those. We're on the YouTubes. Highlight reels coming out. Twitter. The conversation's carrying on Twitter. A fun little poll up right now about what your favorite part of the culture is in the language. So a few more days left on that. Instagram, Facebook, it's all there for the listeners. So we're activo on los redes sociales.
Right. So, all right. Ciao, ciao.
All right, boys.
Goodbye.
Nos vemos.
Hasta
Bye.
luego.